Okay, welcome to day 3. Today we are going to use symbols to summarize what we have done so far in our logic unit. Now, when we talk about symbols in math, one of the most famous ones is this one. I didn't draw that very neatly, but that's one symbol you already know. You know lots of symbols in math already that you kind of take those for granted that you know them. But we're going to learn some new symbols today, okay, that go with the conditional, and the compound statements. Okay, so when we refer to a hypothesis, we usually refer to it as a letter. Now, there's no rules about what letter you can use. And I'll show you some examples how some other problems use R and S and T. One of the ones that gets used a lot is P. So we would say that this particular letter, P, represents the calculator is yellow. That's our hypothesis. And then our conclusion would be generally a letter that goes afterwards, but not always. So there's a Q for the conclusion. The board is white. Now, let's talk a little bit. Let's go back to day 1, talk about conditional statements. If we have an if and a then, we use an arrow that points to the right. Okay? So that refers to the fact that we have an if-then statement. Now, in this particular example, we have an if and a then, so we're going to need the arrow that's pointing to the right. But we also have the calculator is yellow. And remember, the calculator is yellow is being represented by the letter P. And then we have the conclusion, the board is white, and that was represented by Q. So this means if then, right here, the arrow is if then. This is your hypothesis. This is your conclusion. Now let's write the converse. Remember, the converse is a swap, but it is still a conditional statement. It still has an if and a then. So we're going to use that arrow pointing to the right. But now we're going to look, what is our hypothesis? The hypothesis is the board is white. That's what comes first in the converse, and that's Q. Then the conclusion, the calculator is yellow, that's P. And just take a look at this one and this one. Do you see how the swap has happened? The P came first, Q came second. Now the Q comes first, and the P comes second. Give you just a minute to get that written down. All right. Now the inverse, remember, is a negate. Remember, we usually put in the word not, or we take out the word not. And in order to do that, we use the squiggly line that looks like that, kind of like a little curvy line. So if we want to say, okay, first of all, we have an if and a then. So let's put in our arrow pointing to the right. But now we have the calculator is not yellow. Well, we know what the calculator is yellow is. That's P. But because we have the not in there, we're going to put a curly line and then P. So we read this as if not P, then, and now we have the same situation. Then the board is not white. That's going to be not Q. So what this is telling me, this is the inverse because it has a squiggly line out in front. Now for the contrapositive, remember that's both. We swap. and we negate. So here we have, if the board is not white, then the calculator is not yellow. Well, it's an if then. So we're going to write our arrow pointing to the right. Now we have the board is not white. So that's going to be squiggly Q. Then the calculator is not yellow. That's going to be squiggly P. I know that just looks so strange, but those are how the symbols work. Now for a biconditional, we're going to use this. See how the arrow, it looks like the symbol for a line, whereas this one looks like the symbol for an array. But what we're going to do is we're still going to put that in the middle, just like we do the if and only if. And then we're going to say the calculator is yellow. That's P. If and only if the board is white. Q. Now for a conjunction, remember that's where we use and. It's the symbol is going to look like this. And I'm going to make it again because A, I made it kind of sloppy, but B, because I want you to see it looks like we're drawing the letter A. We're just not putting that horizontal piece on it. And why am I pointing that out? Well, let me grab a highlighter. And starts with A. And the symbol looks like A. So that's kind of one way you can remember the symbol for conjunction. So now what we're going to do is we are not going to have any arrows in here because this is not an if-then statement. We're going to say the calculator is yellow and the board is white. And for a disjunction, it's just flipped upside down. It looks like a V. In fact, let me clean that up just a little bit. So the calculator is yellow or the board is white. And then the last word that we learned in day 2 was the word therefore. Therefore looks like 3 dots in the shape of a triangle. So here we have therefore. So we're going to write anywhere we see therefore. Going to get those 3 dots. The board is white. Therefore Q. And so that's a lot of symbols. And I like to have that. That's why I made like one big giant table, because I want this to be your cheat sheet. Okay. The only thing that could change here is this part. I'm going to put a little circle. Sometimes we don't always use P and Q, but the idea stays the same. We still use the arrows, the squiggly lines, the upside down V, the therefore dots. We still use those. We just use different letters. So here's an example of different letters. And we're going to do this one together. And then on the next page, you'll see that there's a couple more examples. Okay. So we'll be able to get some practice in. But I want to do a couple with you just to get you used to it. Okay. Now notice at the beginning it says, use the letters and phrases given to you. Excuse me. Now, what does that mean? Well, S is the same thing as there is school on Labor Day. So anywhere you see there is school on Labor Day, right there, there's school on Labor Day. I'm looking to see. That's all I see. There's school on Labor Day. I don't even see one that's the opposite. That's going to be an S. Okay. Now let's look at this other one. See, these are not P's and Q's. This is S and H and W. Now, H is going to be Labor Day is a holiday. Okay. So here's one. Here's one. Here's one. And here's one that's kind of like it, but it has the word not in there. So we're going to need to label that as not H. H, H, H. Okay, everybody see what I'm doing? I'm looking for those phrases and I'm putting their symbol above them. Okay, last one. W is we work on Labor Day. Okay, so we work on Labor Day. We work on Labor Day. Now, the rest of these say we do not work on Labor Day. See the not? So that'll be a not. We do not work on Labor Day. And I think we have it. I think we have all of our letters. So now the only thing that we need to do is go through and find, is there like a conjunction? Is there an if-then? So I like to look at them and go, do I see any if-thens? Or if and only if? And if I don't see any of those, then I know I'm not going to be using this arrow or this double arrow. Okay? So let's come down here. I'm going to use my highlighter. Now, statement 1 is just, we do not work on Labor Day. So that's just going to be not W. There's nothing else there to change into symbols. Number 2 is just Labor Day is not a holiday. Well, we already said that's not H. There's nothing else there to turn into symbols. But when you get down to number 3, 4, 5, and 6, there are things to change into symbols. See the and? See the or? And the or? So we actually have to put in the symbols for and or when we write the answer. So let me show you an example. For number 3, we have an S. The word and looks like an A, and the letter H. So S means there is school on Labor Day. This symbol right here means and then H means Labor Day is a holiday. That's how we symbolized it. Let's try number 4. We work on Labor Day was W. Or, oops, I did that wrong. Hang on one sec. That looks like a V. Labor Day is a holiday. That's H again. See how I did that? I put it right in the middle. I put the and the or symbols right in the middle where they belong. Now I have Labor Day as a holiday. That's an H. I have the word and. Sorry about that. And we do not work on Labor Day. So not W. And that little squiggly always comes in front of the letter. The last one says there is school on Labor Day. So that's S. Or we work on Labor Day. So those are the symbols. The things that I wrote in black are your answers. All right, so what I'm going to do is we're going to flip over to page 7. Now, I will warn you, number 3 is going to be a little bit strange. So don't let that freak you out. If you have trouble with that one, just wait till we come back to the video. But what you're going to do here, you're going to have a P, you're going to have a Q, and you're going to have an R. So you're going to have 3 letters, and you're going to do exactly what we just did at the bottom of page 6. So at this point, let's pause the video, and you try 1 through 5, and that is where I would like you to stop. Okay, let's get these written out. Now, P refers to 6's prime, Q refers to 6's even, and R refers to 7 is prime. Now, those might not be true statements. Don't let that bother you right now. It might bother you a little bit, but don't let that bother you. All we're doing is symbolizing. We're not going and evaluating the truth of the statement. So if 6 is, 6 is prime, that's the letter P, and 6 is even, that's Q. Number 2, 6 is even. Well, we just did that. That's Q. And 7 is prime. That's R. I'm going to come back to number 3. Let's go to number 4 for a minute. 6 is not prime. See that not? So we've got to take the P and put the squiggly in front. Or, see there's our or, 7 is prime. 7 is prime. R. Number 5 says 6 again is not prime. So we know that's squiggly P. And, looks like an A, 6 is even. That's a Q. Now, if I took this piece out and just asked you, could you write this part? 6 is prime or even. We could write 6 is prime. We could write or. We could write 6 is even. We could do that part. But it's the it is false part that bothers people. And so what you do is you take that statement and you put it in parentheses and you put that out in front of the whole thing. And that means it is not the case that 6 is prime or 6 is even. So I know that one's pretty hard. So if that one really bothered you, try not to be too upset about it because it's a little tough. But I think you guys can handle it. Just a matter of kind of getting some exposure to them. Okay, now this last example on page 7, this is going to do the reverse. This is going to give you the symbols, and they want you to write this in words. So I'm going to do number 3 as an example, and then we're going to pause the video and let you try number 1 and number 2 and number 4. But I want to do an example for you, and I think 3 is the hardest one. So if we look at 3, we have squiggly, P, a right arrow, and a Q. So if you remember, that right arrow represents an if-then statement. And we really haven't practiced that much. So that's kind of the other reason I wanted to do 3. So we're going to have an if and a then. That's the arrow. So the not P or the squiggly P, let's go take a look at what P is. Firemen work hard. Okay. So squiggly P would be the opposite of that. Firemen don't work hard. And that's not an opinion statement. They do work hard. But that's just logically how you write squiggly P. So that's going to go right here. Firemen don't work. Didn't leave myself enough room. Okay. Then the conclusion is Q. So we don't have to do anything to Q. We just have to write it down. Then firemen wear red suspenders. I don't think that they do, but you never know. So that's how that works. So what I'd like you to do is take a couple of minutes, pause the video, try number 1, number 2, and number 4, and then come back and I'll write them out for you. Okay, let's get started. Hopefully number 1 was pretty easy because all you had to do was take the Q and put the word not or don't or something like that into it because it doesn't have one. See here it says firemen wear red suspenders. Well, the opposite of that is firemen don't or can't or won't wear red suspenders. I'm going to use don't. Now, if we look at statement 2, we actually have two pieces. We have a P and a Q, and we have this little symbol, which is for and. So we're going to take P, firemen, work hard. And Q, firemen wear red suspenders. Just takes me a minute to write it out on the screen somewhat neatly. There you go. And then last one, it's not that much different. We just have a P and a Q again, but now we have an or separating them. Firemen work hard. Or firemen wear red suspenders. So that's what it looks like if you have to take the symbols and put the symbols back into words. So after you're all done here and you've gotten all this written down, you guys will be logging into ALEKS, and I hope that it goes well. Thank you very much.